he gets caught on tape, saying some derogatory racist things.
Did you feel like giving him a hug after?
I know.
So much for not speaking ill of the dead, because The Undertaker isn't holding back anymore. He's finally exposing the ugly truth about Hulk Hogan, and some of it is worse than anyone ever imagined. It all began with one fake injury at Survivor Series 1991, the tombstone that never actually injured anyone. November 27, 1991, Survivor Series, the night that would define The Undertaker's relationship with Hulk Hogan for the next 3 decades. Picture this: a young Mark Calloway, just 24 years old, standing across the ring from the biggest name in sports entertainment history. The Deadman was about to capture his first WWF championship, but what happened after that 3-count would expose the real Terry Bollea in ways that haunted their relationship forever. This wasn't just any championship match. It was the night The Undertaker was supposed to prove he belonged in the main event picture, the night he would establish himself as a legitimate threat to the established order. But Hulk Hogan, the golden goose of the WWF, had other plans running through that bald head of his. What took place in those crucial moments would reveal the calculating and manipulative nature that The Undertaker claims defined Hogan's entire career, a setup that began hours before the match and was orchestrated with the precision of a master manipulator.
Back then, we would usually show up noon, on a TV or pay-per-view day. We show up at the arena around noon, 1 o'clock. Hogan would roll in about 4 or 5. So I remember getting there about noon, and Hogan was already...
That should have been the first warning sign, brothers. When a veteran like Hogan suddenly breaks his routine and shows up earlier than usual, you can bet something is brewing in that political mind of his. The Undertaker realized right away that something wasn't right about the entire situation.
Flag number 1.
Red flag number 1, right? So he goes, "Hey kid, can I talk to you?" Right? So we go into one of the locker rooms, into the shower, right? That's where all the business was always done back in the day.
Now, brothers, for those who don't know the wrestling business inside and out, the shower was considered sacred ground. It was the place where real conversations happened, where deals were made, and where conflicts were settled. So when Hogan pulled the young Undertaker into that shower, he was setting the stage for what would become one of the most elaborate deceptions in wrestling history, and the conversation that followed was classic Hogan manipulation at its finest.
And I was like, Hulk, believe me. I said, I will protect you. I pride myself on not hurting people, and I promise you, I will have you so tight that there's no way possible that you're going to hurt you.
Listen to that. Brothers, Hogan was already planting the seeds of doubt in The Undertaker's mind. He wasn't just asking for protection. He was crafting a narrative that would serve him long after the match was over. The young Deadman, being the professional he always was, gave Hogan exactly what any respectful wrestler would give a veteran. He told him, "Hulk, believe me, I will protect you. I pride myself on not hurting people, and I promise you I'll have you so secure there's no way you'll hurt your neck." But that wasn't enough for Hogan. All day long, he kept reinforcing this story, keeping The Undertaker's mind locked on this supposed neck issue. Every time they crossed paths in the hall, Hogan would remind him, "Remember my neck, brother." The psychological warfare was in full effect, and The Undertaker was walking straight into Hogan's trap. Then came the finish of the match, the moment that would expose everything. Ric Flair slid a chair into the ring, and The Undertaker hoisted Hogan up for the tombstone pile driver. When he picked him up, he had Hogan locked in tighter than Fort Knox, completely secure. Boom, The Undertaker delivered that tombstone with the precision and care of a true professional, leaving no chance of injury. But the second his knees hit the mat, Hogan launched into an Academy Award-worthy performance, crying out, "Oh, you got me, brother. My neck and my back." As Hogan writhed around like he'd been hit by a freight train, The Undertaker was devastated, believing he had seriously hurt the biggest star in the company. Imagine it. Brothers, a 24-year-old kid who had just reached the biggest moment of his career by winning the WWF Championship, now consumed with guilt, thinking he had crushed Hulk Hogan. That guilt ate him alive, and it showed the difference between a true professional and a master manipulator. Hogan's mind games had worked to perfection.
Point during the day, I'd pass him in the hall or whatnot, I'd get the, remember about my neck, right? So that's all I got all day. It was.
The backstage scene that followed was pure theater, brothers, and Hogan was playing the lead role to absolute perfection.
I am much like, I'm you have all these, I was 24, 25 years old, and I just crushed Hulk Hogan, right? That's
Picture this. Brothers, The Undertaker, worried sick and convinced he had caused serious harm, rushed backstage to check on Hogan, only to find the Hulkster stretched out on Vince McMahon's office floor, surrounded by paramedics putting on the performance of his life.
I go backstage and where I was asking, where's Hulk at, right? And he's laying on Vince's office.
And the drama just kept building, with Hogan milking every moment for maximum effect. The Undertaker ended up tucked behind a wall, with Shane McMahon, forced to listen as this over-the-top charade played out in front of them. But Shane, who had watched the entire match up close from ringside, was trying to tell The Undertaker the truth.
Telling me, he's like, Mark, he goes, his head wasn't anywhere close to touching that mat. And I'm like, no, man, I just couldn't hear it. I was like, no, man, I heard.
The Undertaker was so overwhelmed with guilt and worry that he couldn't even process what Shane was trying to tell him. Hogan's manipulation had worked so well that the deadman refused to believe the evidence right in front of his eyes. This, brothers, shows you the true genius of Hogan's psychological warfare. It wasn't until days later, when The Undertaker finally reviewed the match footage, that the awful truth came out. The evidence was crystal clear. Hogan's head never even came close to hitting the mat during that tombstone pile driver. The entire injury claim was nothing but a fabrication, a masterful act of manipulation designed to push Hogan's political agenda.
So I finally got to see, but by now, a lot of the boys had come up to me and they're like shaking their head like, his head never got anywhere close to the mat. You watch it back, you can tell his head never.
The revelation put The Undertaker in an impossible position, brothers. Here he was, still fairly new to the business, now faced with the task of confronting the biggest star in the company over an obvious lie, and the political fallout from that could have ended his career before it even truly began.
The greenhorn, right? And now I've got to confront, the face of wrestling, the biggest draw, ever. And now I've got to figure out what I'm going to do here. As a man, I got to know what the hell, but I also know that it's risking my professional career.
When The Undertaker finally gathered the courage to confront Hogan about the obvious deception, the response he received would shape their relationship for the next 3 decades. The confrontation happened in San Antonio, and Hogan's excuse was just as weak as his integrity.
I watched it back. Your head never hit. He's like, well, brother, what it was you had me so tight that when we came down, I had nowhere to move. And that's what jammed my neck, because I couldn't move at all.
Hogan actually tried to blame The Undertaker for being the professional, for protecting him so well during the move that it supposedly caused the problem. The audacity was staggering, but it told The Undertaker everything he needed to know about the real Terry Bollea.
Here's the situation with me and Hulk Hogan. It's just, we've been acquaintances at best. Never been best friends, never been friends. Just a business type thing on the television. His real name is Terry Bollea. My real name is Randy Poffo, and he disrespected me and my family through the media waves.
That moment of clarity changed everything for The Undertaker, brothers. The facade was shattered, and he now saw Hogan for exactly what he was, a master manipulator who would sacrifice anyone and anything to protect his own position. The political fallout of Hogan's deception became clear just 6 days later at this Tuesday in Texas, where The Undertaker was forced to drop the title back to Hogan. Wrestling journalist Jim Cornette later described Hogan's actions as a classic veteran trick designed to guilt-trip younger stars and cut short The Undertaker's first title reign. This incident at Survivor Series 1991 wasn't just about one match or one lie. Brothers, it was about establishing a pattern of behavior that would define Hulk Hogan's career for decades to come. The Undertaker's revelation exposed the political maneuvering and manipulative tactics Hogan used to maintain his spot at the top. But this was only the beginning of the ugly truth. What The Undertaker discovered about Hogan's character in 1991 would pale in comparison to the scandals and controversies that later defined the Hulkster's career, revealing a pattern of deception that stretched far beyond the ring. If you thought The Undertaker's story was shocking, you haven't seen anything yet. The tricks Hogan used inside the ring were just the tip of the iceberg compared to the avalanche of scandals that would follow. The first major crack in Hogan's carefully constructed image came in the early 1990s when the steroid scandal shook the wrestling world. The US government launched a massive investigation into steroid use in the WWF, targeting Vince McMahon. with charges of conspiring to distribute steroids to wrestlers. As the face of the company, Hogan was inevitably dragged into the controversy, and what he admitted under oath shattered the wholesome image he had spent years building. When Hogan took the witness stand, his testimony was explosive. Under oath, he admitted to using anabolic steroids for over a decade, revealing that he began in the 1970s to build the muscular body that became his trademark. The man who built his career as a role model for children openly confessed to illegal drug use that spanned his entire rise to stardom. But the steroid admission was only the start of a long pattern of deception that plagued Hogan throughout his career. His reputation for lying became legendary in wrestling circles, with wild stories ranging from claiming he tried out for Metallica to taking credit for discovering The Undertaker. These weren't just harmless exaggerations, they were deliberate lies crafted to inflate his own legacy at the expense of others. And the most damaging revelation came from none other than Randy Savage, who held nothing back when describing his relationship with Hogan.
The wuss. You see what I'm saying? He goes on the airwaves and he disrespects me. He gives me a shot over the radio, gives me a shot over the TV, he gives me a shot over the internet, here and there, but nothing face to face. Nothing face to face. Nothing face to face. You got it?
Savage's frustration with Hogan's cowardly behavior was undeniable, brothers, and you could feel the intensity every time he spoke about it.
Allegations in that lawsuit state that approximately 6 years ago, the Clems secretly videotaped Mr. Hogan having private, consensual, intimate relations in a private bedroom. Mr. Hogan had no knowledge that he was being videotaped. He did not consent to the taping because he didn't know about it, and he would never have...
You got it, brothers. But all of these controversies pale in comparison to what erupted in 2012 when the infamous tape scandal exploded across the media landscape. The shocking footage of Hogan with Heather Clem, the wife of his close friend, Bubba the Love Sponge, was leaked to the public, and what made it even more devastating was the deep betrayal at its core. Hogan had been secretly recorded by someone he considered a close friend, and the legal battle that followed was intense, with Hogan's attorney exposing the full extent of the deception.
You lowlifes, all you scumbags, all you drug dealers, and all you crooked politicians need to answer one question, brother. What you gonna do when Donald Trump and all the Trumpomaniacs run wild on you, brother?
Hogan sued Gawker Media for $100 million, claiming invasion of privacy and emotional distress, and the case became one of the most high-profile legal battles of the decade. In the end, the jury awarded Hogan $115 million in compensatory damages and $25 million in punitive damages, a crushing verdict that forced Gawker Media into bankruptcy and ultimately shut down its operations. But brothers, the real bombshell from the scandal wasn't the tape itself, it was what Hogan said during those private moments that nearly destroyed his career forever. In 2015, transcripts from the tape were released, revealing some of the most offensive and racially charged language imaginable. Hogan was heard using the N-word multiple times while expressing frustration over his daughter Brooke's dating choices, and the backlash was swift and devastating. WWE immediately terminated his contract, erased his profile from the Hall of Fame, pulled all of his merchandise, and scrubbed any mention of him from their website. The company that had built Hogan into a global superstar completely disavowed him within hours. Forced to respond, Hogan made his first public apology, saying, "I'm not a racist, but I never should have said what I said. It was wrong. I'm embarrassed by it. People need to realize you inherit things from your environment and where I grew up was South Tampa, Port Tampa, a rough, low-income neighborhood. But brothers, the damage was done. The racist comments weren't the only shocking part of those tapes either. Hogan was also heard using homophobic slurs while discussing storylines for his reality show Hogan Knows Best. This painted a picture of someone whose private beliefs were completely at odds with the clean-cut public persona he had built. The Undertaker's reaction to these controversies said it all. When the racial scandal broke, he wasn't surprised. He had seen the real Terry Bollea back in 1991, and everything that followed was simply confirmation of what he already knew. The political controversies only piled on when Hogan threw his support behind Donald Trump's presidential campaigns, with his appearance at the Republican National Convention standing out as particularly cringeworthy, brothers, as he launched into a bizarre rant that sounded more like a wrestling promo than a serious political speech.
When I saw him, he was no-selling it and pushing his beer.
Did you feel like giving him a hug afterwards?
I know.
The Undertaker's cold assessment continued.
Hey, man, I got feelings. I got feelings for people. Like, sometimes in life, things come back.
The political affiliations only added more fuel to the fire, especially when combined with Hogan's history of racist comments. The Undertaker's assessment of the situation was brutally honest during his podcast commentary on Hogan's reception at WWE Raw's Netflix debut. When Hogan appeared on the Netflix debut of Monday Night Raw in January 2025, the Los Angeles crowd booed him relentlessly as he tried to promote his Real American beer. The Undertaker's reaction to the incident was telling, showing absolutely no sympathy for his former colleague.